Folks, very good morning, good afternoon. Welcome to the live futures trading session with myself, Charles Cochran. Good to see you back, folks. Hey, Brett, Brian, Mark Anthony, Ryan. Good to see you all. Good to see you back, Mark Anthony, again. And right, let's get stuck in. So, where we're on today is we've had a couple of things happen. We've had OPEC Plus reportedly considering a production increase of over 411,000 barrels per day in July. And if you just take a look at how that's impacted oil markets, and if you just take a look at oil markets on the ticker chart, if you just take a look at this, this is one for you. You can see that on the tick chart, when you've got some negative news, how sort of handy that tick chart is for trap buyers and sellers. So you can see, here when you've got the buyers trapped down, buyers trapped down, trapped down, trapped down, down. Every single lot of trapped buyers in the first sort of 12 minutes of that news would have worked out nicely. So worth looking at, and that very nice pullback there. And then when you put that together with the sort of tick chart setup, when you've got the on-balance volume moving lower and the cumulative delta moving lower together, you can see that's can work really nicely. So that's on that news that OPEC is considering a production increase of over 411,000 barrels per day. So there's more supply in market. That's negative for oil. Okay, so that was also given a further shove down on the negative news when Donald Trump has basically said that China has violated its preliminary trade deal. So that's also sort of sending markets reeling lower. The PCE print was pretty much as expected. So inflation is coming down from the prior readings, which is what we'd expect. So no surprise there. GDP slightly stronger out of Canada. That's a little bit of good news for the CAD, but obviously CAD is a risk-off sentiment's being hit. And then we've got the University of Michigan final print at 3, so there's not too much there on the data front. Looking at the calendar, we've got Bostich speaking at 5:20, Trump speaking on the US steel deal after hours at 8 o'clock, Fed's daily speaking at 9:45. So a couple of late speakers, but apart from that, it's the University of Michigan consumer print. That's going to be next up on the slate, coming out at 3 o'clock. So that could move markets. So the initial reaction to Trump's headline is we've seen the E-mini slump quickly lower. You can see here we've moved right down to this developed value area on the weekly chart. You can see that volume profile from a couple of weeks back. Literally moved into that zone, touched it, and found a little bit of support. We've rejected this week's point of control, and we're now sat in the value area low from this week. So strong rejection, but you can see that sellers have trapped all those buyers, and delta is negative, but has been rising in the last sort of half an hour. On the 15-minute chart, you can see this sharp drop. We've moved up to a developed value area low here from the 27th of May. So again, not a bad area for potential shorting. We moved up to the daily VWAP. Price found some support from these 5890, 5880 region. What we're looking for here is ideally sort of a breakdown below this value area. So you can see here sellers trapped those buyers, and that sort of made a little move down here. But notice the cumulative delta keeps moving up. So a little bit of divergence going on here. The price is trying to move lower, but you can see price moving lower, delta moving up. So buyers are trying to come back in here. The area you've got to be careful of is this value area. So that standard deviation 5911 is not a bad area for looking for longs, looking for shorts. If we can break above that 5920, then longs are back on. So a bit easier to see on the volume profile. You can see if we get up to sort of 5910, 5915, right? That's not a bad area for looking for shorts, right? If we go below the value area low, this area here, then we could look for a move back down to the lows of the day. So if we're unable to break above that value area low here, that's not a bad area to look for continuation down. And if we get all the way down to these region here, S1, that's not a bad area to look for a long reversal. Okay, get below there, then you'd expect further downside. So if we stay below 5910, we're fading upside, looking for breakdowns. So that's worth looking at, even looking at now actually. Just to see, is there anything there? Yeah, okay, sellers coming in. Just see if there's anything there responsive. Sellers, yeah, I quite like that for a short because you've got a bit of volume coming in. See sellers coming in, on balance volume moving lower. You can see that these buyers getting trapped. Be nice to see if we can sort of break down through this area. Let's see what we get, if anything. We had some buyers trapped up there. Let's see if these sellers can keep it going lower. You got on balance volume and delta shifting lower. And if you look at the 5-minute chart, you can see sellers are trying to break down through these buyers here, obviously hitting that standard deviation. So important area, but obviously quite negative sentiment out there. And you can see if we can break down through that area, then a retest of that 5891 wouldn't be unreasonable. Let's see everything tilting lower for now. Taking a look around markets generally, see equity markets are tilting lower. You can see that initial shove lower is indicative of a hammer reversal bar on the S&P 500. Right, you can see that that's a reversal, that's a rejection of higher prices. So a breakdown lower isn't unreasonable. See if we can move down. There's a bit of a run. Maybe could we get as far as the 5800? You never know. It's not a bad area, and not a bad area for looking for responsive longs. Looking at the rest of the futures market, you can see all the US equity futures markets are lower. Euro Stoxx DAX somewhat mixed. Volatility just rising a little bit. You can see that bonds finding a little bit of bidding coming in on that risk-off sentiment, and you can see gold finding some bids and silver on the risk-off sentiment that's coming back into markets. Dollar CAD continues its way lower after the hotter than expected GDP data out for Canada. Other than that, dollar sort of staying offered. I think, yeah, that's the main thing really. So that selling pressure still here. Delta, like cumulative delta sort of flattening, on balance volume flattening. So keep an eye on that. We've had a 5-minute close, and you've got sellers trapping those buyers. But those buyers are still there here, and a bit of absorption going on there. See that absorption's, well, I just switched to longs there just because of that absorption going on here. See the price is moving lower, even as the delta is moving higher. And the fact that we weren't able to trap those buyers there means those buyers are still there. And the fact that these buyers are coming in and trapping these sellers. So if these buyers can trap these sellers, then you've got cumulative delta moving higher, on balance volume moving higher, and see if that can just provide a little bit of a turnaround into the open. Let's see. Slightly speculative, but we'll give it a go. See price moving lower, delta moving higher. You can see it a little bit more clearly there, that absorption. Delta making higher lows, price making lower lows. So there's buyers stepping in down here. That's what that's telling us. We'll be back in 2 seconds.
And seeing a post on X here from Fox Business News Gasparino. He does note the very few lawyers he knows who are involved in the US Court of International Trade and the appeals process of its ruling tell him that Trump would have been better off not appealing to the Federal Circuit in DC because it's packed with Obama and Biden appointed judges. They are inclined to rule against him and the legality of his using emergency order to announce sweeping tariffs. They say, should he appeal directly to the Supreme Court of the US, which was also not an easy lift given recent anti-Trump rulings, but still better odds. That's just via Fox Business News at Gasparino.
Okay. Send me a message, Mark Anthony. Send me an email. And I can check with Paul. Absorption building, price making higher, price making lower lows, cumulative delta making higher lows and continuing to build. If it could just push up above those sellers, just checking there isn't any headline pushing that higher. Okay, so now we've had these buyers now trap sellers here and here. Notice that absorption going on here. Yeah, that was a good sort of tell that these buyers are going to come in here. Right, now we're coming up to a 15-minute. We're hitting that VWAP, so it's an important area to hit. 5-minute. Let's just see if we can get a break above these. Break above those highs would be good. If we can get and stay above 5905. All right, we've had an attempt at it. So I'm just going to move the stops up there underneath the VWAP, really, and see if we can get. I think I might just. I'm going to exit that and just take that off. Kind of hit the VWAP, and then let's see where we go from here.